everybody, and welcome back to the Exit Is Now podcast, Walking to Destiny, with the creator of the methodology and the author of the book, Walking to Destiny, my dad, Chris Snider. So we're in episode 3 of our first season of our Walking to Destiny podcast, and the intent of our show is to dive through the technical, the practical, the application of the value acceleration methodology by sharing value acceleration stories for both our advisors and our owners listening. And so we are now in episode 3, where our concentration is going to be part 1 of Walking to Destiny. So if you certainly have the book and are listening in, or you're watching live with us, pull out the book and open it up to part 1 of Walking to Destiny. And I want to start by talking about the business owner mindset. And I think the first thing that we kind of alluded to in our previous episode a couple of weeks ago, we started talking about this mindset shift that a business owner must have. And for, I think, the professional advisor, we need to begin to understand that business owner mindset to better serve them as their most valued and trusted advisor. So kind of let's go down this journey a little bit of understanding business owner mindset in part 1 of Walking to Destiny by talking to us, Chris, about how do you think business owners are generally thinking today? Remember, there's multiple generations as well now that you see in the marketplace, a lot different than I think in 2016. We alluded to it. We talked about this in part 1 or in episode 1 of our Walking to Destiny podcast, where when you first really started out, became a SEPA, started putting all of this together, the baby boomer generation, which is the predominant generation that owns privately held companies, they were pretty young. Today, we see multiple generations along the way. So you're going to talk to us about the business owner's mindset as it exists today.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's kind of weird because it's been almost 20 years.
Right.
Since I first got exposure to SEPA.
Right.
That's a long time, and there's a lot of change. When I went through SEPA, it was all about the baby boomers, for obvious reasons, right? They were 20 years younger.
Right.
It was all about, how we're going to help this boomer. And the thought was, I think at the time, the boomers are going to exit, young, and we got to be ready for them. It didn't turn out that way. I think a lot of the early forecasters just kind of misunderstood the baby boomer mindset.
Yeah.
Which is different than today. So today, you really have to think about what type of owner are you speaking to? Mm-hmm. Because your messaging needs to be tailored for that particular generation. And, there's a 50% chance you'll be talking to a boomer, but I think it's like there's over a 40% chance you'll be talking to a Gen Xer.
Right.
So it's almost 50-50.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
It was not that way 20 years ago. And the messaging is very different. If you're still talking the old way, with the old messaging to a Gen Xer, you're going to turn them off. So you have to tailor it for that particular generation. And one of the good thing that makes me feel happy and feel good is that the younger generations are much more inclined to integrate the principles of value acceleration into their businesses while they own their businesses. Where we're still, even to this day in the latest survey, we're just not seeing the baby boomers come around. And this was something that I wondered about. I guess I say that and I sort of laugh because you think like, God, this guy sleeps, eats, drinks, exit planning. But I guess I did, I was like so into it. I wondered back then, like, would it take a generation before we could really change this paradigm of the way people view exit planning? And I think it may. Because over 20 years, we haven't seen the boomers really move much in the direction of exit planning. But the good news is the younger owners are coming into their own, their prime. And I think probably within 5 years or so, we're going to see the Gen Xers be the predominant generation. And that's good for exit planning, and that's good for our members because they are much more inclined to get educated, to go to an outsider, to have a board, to follow the 3 legs of the stool. I mean, they're much more inclined to do that. So I think all of that points to our best days are still ahead of us.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that spot on. We see this a lot in our profession today, where the younger generations are seemingly more focused on it, and I think it's because of the work you guys did 20 years ago. Is that you started laying this foundation, so guys like me are kind of, I always say, kind of brought up through the value acceleration methodology. Though I think there's maybe some kind of maybe common denominator, regardless of age or generation, is this concept that you talk a lot about in Walking to Destiny. It's a kind of a foundational mindset shift from lifestyle business owner to value creator owner. So can you talk to us about what that means?
Yeah, my experience in working with the owners, when I reflected back and getting ready to write the book and everything, I felt like 90% of the owners I met were lifestyle business owners, meaning they had businesses that were, quote, successful.
Right.
They were generating good income. Usually, if you're in business for 10 years or more, if your business survives, remember, 50% of the businesses fail in the first 5 years. If you're around for 10 years, you probably have got a business that's starting to mature, and it's probably a pretty good business, and it's probably generating some pretty good income now. And so you find these lifestyle owners that have good lives, private schools, big cars, multiple cars, second homes. They have a good life. But as we learned that just income alone does not mean your business is transferable.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
And so as I looked at all these businesses and then I sort of wondered, well, and I always felt this way too, even coming up early in my career. You don't learn from people who do things wrong. I mean, you might learn what I shouldn't be doing, but you're still with the question, well, what do I do to make it right?
Exactly.
You learn from people who've done it right. Fortunately, I had some amazing mentors in my life. And then when I was in my, upper 30s, I went to work for Rayburn and Flexalloy. And I can remember being in there and of course, I hired all my friends to come over there. And I'm like, you got to come work here. It's awesome. And I remember sitting, like the Into Paint meetings.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
The first one that my buddy Scott Spiker attended. He's sitting next to me, and he's like, "This is really weird." There's companies that actually do this. Like, he's like, when are we gonna, kill the lamb and drink the blood and stuff? It's like because we were so. Our culture was so strong and passionate. Everybody in the company was. I mean, imagine back in those days, we didn't even have like internet. Then we had to dial in all the different plants.
From around the country.
Yeah, there was no video, there was no internet.
So they're just really listening in.
Everybody's listening in, gathering in their paint and listening in, and we're having a total company meeting with all the locations participating, and you could hear each other, but you couldn't see each other, and it was over phone lines.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't know where I was going with that, but it's like the culture that was created was really truly unique. And so I think I've had really good mentors.
Sure.
And I've had great experiences, and then I learned from really great leaders. And so I stopped and thought, well, we need more value creators is what we need. We need more leaders, and less lifestyle owners. And how do I explain what a value creator lifestyle or value creator business is like? So I studied those clients of mine and my past experience with mentors. It's like, what did they do? What were they doing? What made them different, right? Yeah. And so that's where the lifestyle versus value creators came from.
So when you talk about a value creator owner, one of the key elements, the part of the ingredients of a value creator owner is that they're decentralized from their business. I think it's critically important. So talk to us a little bit about what does decentralizing yourself as an owner mean, and how does it lead you towards more value
super
creation?
Easy to talk about, super hard to do.
As owners ourselves, I think as somebody that's living it, I couldn't agree more that it's you've created this thing. We have this new keynote that we're doing now talking about this value creator mindset, moving from it's not just about me, it's really about we. And so that means, as for me at least, the tough part about it is you have some stuff in your own business that you don't necessarily like, but you know it's not just about you. It's really about the collection of the 100 people or 50 people or 12 people that are there. But yeah, talk about that decentralization moment for owners. Definitely.
I mean,
complex.
we could do I
whole
could
show
speak
on
to
it.
this for hours. I mean, and that's that's my next book. I'm gonna talk about that, write about that. It's because it's so important and it's so hard to do. And I don't think it's so much an ego thing. I mean, some of it is ego because you know you're at the top of the pyramid.
It's your creation and, for a lot of us.
It's yours, and when it's just yours, it's not worth much. Right? It has to be ours. It has to be something we all feel, whether we're owners or not. I mean, little things like, at Flexaloy, we didn't refer to employees as employees, refer to them as partners. Now, were they technically a partner? No, but we tried to treat them as if they were partners. We tried to set that mindset in our own company. We refer to our employees as value creators, right? And I think they like that.
Yeah.
So I think that when you're trying to, your business is most valuable when you're least needed. But from a personal standpoint, you feel most vulnerable then. Yeah. Because you're like, if I had to come back in and run this company, I don't know if I actually could. I mean, people say to me now, like at the summit, they're like asking me questions, and I'm like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. What's going on half the time. Now you keep me informed.
Sure.
What you got to have is you got to have touch points that keep you connected, right? But it doesn't mean you have to be there every day or make every decision. So you set up these, again, maybe it's a process thing, the way my mind works.
Yeah.
But like we have our partner meetings every month. We spend 2 hours together, one-on-one. And we have our routine where we go through the financials and you bring up any key issues. And I have my key issues that I want to talk about, big projects, big investments, cultural things, because that's a big part of our company. And so that allows me to be connected and ask questions and feel really connected to the business, even if it's for a short period of time. But I don't have to be there every day. Occasionally I'll sit through an L10, just if nothing else, just to kind of get a sense for how's the team, what's the chemistry like when I sit in on those meetings. When I'm sitting in, I'm mostly observing, but what I'm watching for is the chemistry good? I'm looking for people who are looking down or not speaking up, or that's so. There's mechanisms you can put in place where as the majority owner or the primary owner, in some cases the owner, you can still have a pulse on how the company's doing without necessarily being there every day. And it's so important because I think the number one reason business owners don't do more personal or financial planning, and this is just my opinion, I don't have facts on this, but they don't have time.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what it's like.
I know. Yeah.
To run, to be president of a company that's growing, 40%. It's hard. You're busy, and then you've got, when you're younger too, you've got young kids and you've got these work-life balance challenges. It's easier when you get older and your kids are gone, right? But then you don't have the energy anymore, because it takes I always say, growing a business is a young man's sport, or young person's sport, Yeah. Because it takes a lot of energy. And so, but it's possible to kind of ease your way out of a business versus just cutting the cord. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think it's a smarter way to go. You just kind of ease your way out. If you think about our own experience, you've been president now for 5 years.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. It's going to be 5 years since you've been president. But, our process started 5 years before that, in terms of mentoring you to kind of take over. And one final thing I'll say that I think it's important for owners to hear, too, is that you get where you're out of date. I also felt in 2021 that I was getting out of date with my customers and their customers, meaning I was, I'm the boomer.
Yeah.
And there's a new wave coming in here. They're called Gen Xers and Millennials, and they think differently than I think. And I just feel somewhat disconnected from them. And is that the person that should be leading the company? Somebody that's disconnected from the future generations that are going to drive where we're going. I don't think that's appropriate because I don't think like a millennial or a Gen Xer. What we need millennials and Gen Xers, who can work but important, like I will say this on my staff too, you guys come to me for strategy, wisdom. I got a lot of wisdom,
Sure.
You guys
definitely.
come to me for those kinds of things, which is a great role. I love playing that role. But in terms of the strategic, decisions and directions that the companies are moving, you need to make sure that you're connected with your customers. And sometimes you can find yourself out of date.
Yeah, I mean, I like how you describe that because I think if you pause, if you're the business owner or even the advisor listening in, we teach that an exit strategy is about a 3 to 5 year kind of process. When really, this is why we talk about living a more value acceleration centric life, and it goes back up to decentralizing as a business owner. It goes back up to lifestyle versus value creator owners.
Totally.
Is that, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I think that what I was going to talk about earlier in the segment when we started talking about lifestyle and value creator is that outside of you, of course, and a lot of the CEPAs that have mentored me, in those early parts, like at 16, 17, 18, 20 years old, we didn't have podcasts then for me yet, but we certainly had books, right, and articles and all that more traditional stuff that you would read. And I think every book and every article that I would read as a young entrepreneur would teach me how to grow a lifestyle business, how to grow a successful company, strong P&L, strong balance sheet, good relationships with your customers.
A bankable business.
A bankable business. None of it was teaching me about not even how to get out, but how to create a valuable company, one that could run with or without me, regardless of exit. Say I was 10 years away from exit, how do I start to build a company that could be decentralized? And I think you're absolutely right. If you watch our journey alone, we went from like the first 5 years, from 14 when I came in to 2020, give or take. 5 or 6 years where you were leading. Then in 2020, 2021, we have this transition where now I'm leading. And that segment started with you. Now that I'm leading the business side, you can start doing some more personal financial, estate planning, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And now 5 years later, in 2026, we find our executive team stepping up so that I can go do some of that other stuff as well. But I think you said it earlier in the show today too, is that I think the biggest change that we've seen in the last 5 years in our own business, taking on and living in a more value acceleration way, is that we have 56 value creators now, and of a variety of different levels. But I do think that they're all proud to say that they understand how value is driven in a business. They understand that their role is more than the X's and O's of the daily P&L or the 8 to 5, the punch card. They understand what needs to get done to create success year over year, but they also understand what they're doing every day, how that contributes to long-term value and significance. And I think that's been a real win for us in our own business, is decentralizing both of us from our company, because truly that's what makes it valuable, right? When it's not, again, about the culture or the programs that you and I have created. It's about the collection of community.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying, and people have heard me say this before, is your culture evolves. You don't like create a culture. There's things you can do to drive towards a culture you want.
Right.
But the culture comes out of the things that you do, the actions that you take.
Yep.
It's not like I'm going to have a culture. I can't go buy culture.
Right.
Right. You have to develop it.
Yep.
And it's developed through actions. But I also, as you were talking about that, now our executive team has matured nicely. But not only do they understand the value of a decentralized owner, they've stepped into it. And it kind of goes back to one of previous episodes when you were talking about, like, what do we need CEPAs to do? Well, you need to activate. You need to step into it.
Yeah.
And so you can have an executive team that understands, but not all executive teams will step into that fire. Now I offer to do stuff and people say, "No, don't need you." Like, it does hurt a little bit. Like, you don't need me. Like, but they don't. Right. And when they, we have our executive retreat where I spend time, I still come to the quarterlies.
Yeah.
We have our partner meetings. So I'm saying there's things to keep yourself connected. And if somebody, Josh will call up and say, hey, can we have lunch? Or
Sure.
Scott Lang, can we have lunch? I guess my message is really here towards owners, and really could be advisors who are owners, is you really got to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do because you want to step in. I see you guys doing some stuff that I wouldn't really do it that way, but you got to hold yourself back. And I don't know, do I have time to share the Fred story?
Of course.
I think it's an awesome story. I remember going back with Fred Johnson, our leadership team developer. And Fred, if you're listening, you'll enjoy this. But you wanted to we invest a lot in our people.
100%. Yep.
That's another message to owners. Where's that line item on your budget? If you don't have a line item on your budget, an employee development or professional development budget, you got to get one on your.
Well, it's a path to decentralization and value creation.
Totally, and your people will get stronger and faster and smarter.
Yeah.
But you got to invest in them.
100%.
It's just not going to happen if you don't invest in them. And you got to be careful you don't overinvest. But you put a line item on your budget and put $100,000 or whatever you're going to do onto that. Start small if you need to, and then you can build up to it. But I remember you and Fred coming to me saying you wanted to do this program, and remember I said no the first time. I looked at the price tag. I'm not doing that. And then after a year, I went to Fred and I said, do you think? I think I got a really young team. And I think maybe I should bring in some more experienced people to mentor them for a few years, before I just put them in charge of this stuff. I remember Fred saying, you got a really young, talented team. They're going to make mistakes, but they'll learn fast. And they're really smart and fast and committed. They're passionate about it. And I said, all right, I made what I call the leap of faith. I didn't agree with it, but I listened to you and others, and 2 years later, I was slapping Fred on the back and calling him an SOB. Guys, you were right.
Right.
Because the results were tremendous. So my point of that story is there's times in your gut you're thinking I don't think that's the way we should do it, and you've got to hold yourself back because your team will never develop if you're always stepping in the way. But you have to be willing to accept some of the mistakes and the stumbling and that'll happen. But, if you have the right people, they'll learn fast, just like Fred said, and they'll respond.
So when you look at part one of Walking to Destiny, and we start round out this business owner mindset section of part one, we also talk to business as personal. In fact, I think there's a reflection question in the back of the book about this segment of Walking to Destiny. And I'll give it back to you so the audience can hear the answer direct from the creator and author is, why is owning a business a personal journey? Can you talk to that?
Yeah, I do. I talk to that, say, owning a business is a personal journey more than anything else.
Correct, yeah.
And it's because, owners, and this is what I love about working with owners, they're just, not everybody, but most, they're just passionate about what their business is part of their family. It's their baby,
Yeah.
And you do feel, it's something, whether you created it or just adopted it or bought it, it's a part of you. This idea, I always talk about this idea of, you got your business life and your personal life and they're separate and you got to keep them separate, to me is ludicrous, right? Not the rapper, it's ludicrous. Yeah. They're not. When you're an owner, it's all meshed together in one pot. Mm-hmm. And they all live together all the time. It's I don't know about you, but I don't know how many ideas I get when I'm, at home or I'm riding in your motor home or, I'm taking a run or, Denise, my wife, will say something and it'll jot. It's just always with you. There's no, a business owner is part of my identity, and it's just all part of who I am.
Right.
And that's why it becomes personal. Mm-hmm. The other part of it is it's like an extended family because your team, your value creators, are like extended family members. You feel,
Sure.
you see them having children, and you see them struggling in life and struggling in business, and you feel for that. You feel responsible for that, right? We got what, 55, 56
Yeah.
people, and you feel responsible for those people. So that they're kind of like an extended family, and you want to see them grow, and you want to see them happy, and so I just think that it's not. And maybe all owners don't feel this way. Maybe I'm unique, but I just feel like it's so personal because your business is an extension of you, and it is a representation of who you are. That's
totally
why I
agree.
put brand as part of culture, right, in the 4 C's, because your brand and how the world, sees your company is a reflection of who you are, and that's why it's personal.
I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Plus, I would say from a financial side of things, it's likely your largest asset inside of your personal financial portfolio. So it's also powering many, from an income standpoint, many segments of your life. So there's, I think, multiple personal touches along the way. And so, yeah, I totally agree that. I believe in this section one, part one of Walking to Destiny is this mindset shift, not from just lifestyle to value creator to decentralization, but to also know that business is absolutely personal. It's not one or the other. It's really a personal journey, not just a business journey.
Yeah, like as you know, I'm a big follower of Covey, as I mentioned before, and one of the exercises he takes you through is to identify your roles in life, right? And so, yeah, my roles in life, I'm a father, right? I'm a brother, son, those kinds of things. I'm an athlete. I like to look at myself as an athlete. I'm a runner. I'm a gardener. I'm also a business owner. It's one of my roles in life,
Right.
And so I represent that to my family, who's affected by those decisions. That's represented to my community, to my employees, And so to me, it is just another extension of your roles in life if you're an owner. And I think it goes beyond. It's not a job. Now, there are some owners that just
do
see it as a job, but I think most owners truly do have the right intentions. They're very charitable. They feel that responsibility, and I think they're proud of that role that they've created for themselves.
So that would lead me to the question then of why don't owners exit? And so is it because it's such it's so tied to them personally? You mentioned all these different things that you are, from athlete to father to son to business owner. It's almost like if you ripped out one of these big identities from you, that it would obviously make things even tougher. So you kind of wind down this section of Walking to Destiny in the early parts, talking about why owners don't exit today.
Yeah, and I give several reasons in Walking to Destiny as to why that is. I think, that is a struggle when, let's face it, most of the owners are getting older. Certainly the boomers are, and this has been, I've been working for 45 years, for Christ's sake, I was working when I was 12.
Yeah.
I was getting, I think I got my first paycheck at 14.
Yeah.
Working hard is a big part of my life. But it's not that this is where the shift in thinking has to come. It's not, I'm going to stop working hard. Now, granted, when you get older, and those over 60 probably understand or appreciate this more than guys like yourself, right? There's just, you physically, and you don't have the energy you used to have. And it's just part of life. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not bad or good. It's just, but what you begin to do is you shift. So you're always playing with this. I like to use the word harmony. You always have this harmony, right? So when you're younger and you're in your prime, like you're really focused on business and raising a family and don't have a lot of time to yourself, right? You have to be very intentional because you just don't have a lot of time for yourself. But then as you get older and decentralized, all of a sudden that time starts coming back, where you don't have to spend as much time on the business now because you got really good, if you've done your job properly, you've got really good people running your business, and now you can begin to shift time. So it's not like you're less busy. I'm busier than I've ever been, right? But I'm not actually working business as much as but I'm as busy as I've ever been doing other things, and other things come into your life. And so it's really not a less, it's really just a shift. And in some cases it could be more. So I have more freedom. I have more personal time. I have more money. I have, more children, grandchildren. So I just think part of it is the way you look at it, and shifting, going with the flow of life. I have to get too heavy here, but just going with the flow of life, and then there's kind of shifting where your focus is, and hopefully, you've got some things other than business. That's the problem, I think, a lot of owners, why they don't exit, because they don't have anything else.
Well, they couldn't go through the identity things that you just said, right? No. Husband, father, son, gardener, athlete, runner. They haven't figured all that out yet. I mean, they identify as business owner.
My dad was one of those guys. He retired from the bank, and he's home every day. Raised 7 kids, he and my mom.
Yeah.
Mostly my mom. And and he decided he's going to take over the household, because he had anybody to boss around anymore, right? So he starts bossing around my mom. Well, my Irish Catholic mother wasn't having any of that. And I can remember her going, Richard, you need to find something to do and some place to go, because I've raised 7 kids in this house without you around, and you're not going to start telling me after all these years how to run this house, right? And so, he got a buddy and who had a law office, and he would go hang out there. But he didn't. The problem with my dad is he didn't have anything else. He didn't play golf. He didn't read. He didn't travel. He didn't have anything else to do. All he knew was work. And so when work was, if that's all you are, when that gets pulled away, it's devastating. I can see how you can get lost. And so you've got to have other things, and you can't wait until you retire, quote, retire, and say, okay, well, now I'm going to start golf, because you know what? You're too old to start golf. So I think that you got to develop these other, you got to take your time, you got to have a long time horizon, and what you got to do is just slowly start to shift your time to other things and resist the temptation to get sucked back in.
Yeah, totally agree. So that's the top of the mark for us for our episode 3 together. We're going to be back to round out part 1 of Walking to Destiny. So I'm just I have my book with me here on the live on the podcast now, looking at our table of contents. We are kind of through the first few chapters, leading ourselves towards the methodology. So we're going to not diving into concepts or the practical or technical process yet. We're still laying the foundation of the benefits of value acceleration and looking at those 11 actions, so on and so forth. So we'll continue developing the owner's mindset and diving deeper on our next episode, which is episode 4, coming up on August 26th. So please share this podcast with a business owner, a fellow advisor, a colleague that you want to inspire around becoming more of a value creator mindset. Again, we're exploring the world of value acceleration by dissecting the book Walking to Destiny here on the Walking to Destiny podcast with Chris. So I appreciate your time again, and we will see you back again on August 26th, where we dive deeper into the business owner mindset by putting the methodology to work. We'll see you then. Thanks.
Bye.